There's a great story that I read in one of my kids' bedtime books, and it's a story that I love because it's so different from what we're used to hearing about in the world of leadership, in the world of politics. So the story goes that there was a young man who was going to get married, and there was a great rabbi who lived in his apartment building, and this rabbi's name was Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Now, some of you might be familiar with that name. He was a rabbi who came over from Europe to New York's Lower East Side at the beginning of the 1900s, and he was extremely instrumental, very well versed in Jewish law, very, very instrumental figure in helping the new generation of American Jews figure out how to integrate living a Jewish observant life with the new way of being a Jew in America. And this great man was a neighbor of his in his building, and he asked him if this great rabbi would honor him by officiating at his wedding. And of course, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein agreed, and he was so happy. And later, a couple of weeks later, Rabbi Feinstein approached him again, and he said, I'm so sorry, but as it turns out, I'm actually going to be out of town for your wedding, and I'm going to be unable to officiate. And the young man was really disappointed, but he instead asked the dean of his yeshiva, whom he was close with, if he would do it. And he said yes. As it got closer to the wedding, Rabbi Feinstein came to him once again and said, it turns out I am going to be in town for your wedding, and if you haven't asked somebody else yet, I would really love to officiate at your wedding. So the young man started stammering, and he said, well, I don't actually know what to do. In fact, maybe the rabbi can help me figure out what the right thing to do is in this situation, because I asked the dean of my yeshiva if he would do it, and he agreed. But of course, you are a senior sage and a senior rabbi, and I actually asked you first. And so Rabbi Feinstein proceeded to approach the other rabbi, and the two of them began to have a kind of friendly argument over which one was going to be allowed to give the honor to the other to officiate at this wedding. And the younger rabbi, of course, wanted Rabbi Feinstein to do it. And Rabbi Feinstein, in his incredible humility, wanted the younger rabbi to do it. And so Rabbi Feinstein said, well, I think that you should do it because you really have a personal, close relationship with this young man. And so the younger rabbi said, well, he actually asked you first. And Rabbi Feinstein said, I'm older, and therefore you have to listen to me. And so after this friendly argument, it turned out that Rabbi Feinstein managed to convince the younger rabbi to do it. But the reason I love the story so much is because it expresses what I think is one of the most beautiful concepts in Judaism, and one that is unfortunately so rare, and that is the idea of humility and leadership. And how in Judaism, nobody becomes a leader simply by virtue of a brilliant mind or even incredible Torah scholarship. It has come along with beautiful character traits, with humility and self-effacement. And our greatest leaders throughout the Torah consistently have this trait. And likewise, you see throughout the Torah many people who are extremely well-versed and accomplished Torah scholars whose character traits are not what they ought to be. And these are people who typically end up tripping themselves up and making mistakes in terms of their leadership and in terms of their ability to interact with other people and to be a good example and a good role model. And so I think of the story. A very good friend of mine is turning 50, and we had a little get together with a bunch of women, and we had a little birthday party for her. And I shared this story in a Devar Torah at our get together, and I explained to her that the reason I am so grateful to have her as a friend is because I feel that she really exemplifies humility and leadership. This is a person who leads by example. She leads with modesty. She leads with self-effacement. And she's a lifelong learner. And if you will look around and see people who are always trying to learn from others, this is part and parcel of being humble. And personally, I'm grateful to know people like that. And I'm sure everybody knows somebody like that. So count yourself lucky if you do know somebody who has humility and leadership. It is a rare and beautiful trait.